By age 70, the average person has lost a full inch of height. By 80, 2 inches or more. And here's what almost nobody tells you. Most of that loss has nothing to do with your bones getting shorter. The real reason your body shrinks after 50 is happening in the soft tissue between your bones, in the muscles along your spine, and in a slow chemical process that's quietly dehydrating you from the inside. Most people assume shrinking with age means osteoporosis, that the bones themselves are crumbling and shortening. That's the story everyone repeats. And while bone loss is real and serious, it's not the main driver of the height you lose. Not at first. Not for most people. Here's what's actually happening. Your spine is not one solid pole. It's a stack of 33 bones called vertebrae, and between most of them sits a cushion, a soft, jelly-filled disc that acts like a shock absorber. You have 23 of these discs running down your back. Stack them up and they account for roughly a quarter of the entire length of your spine. That's the part that's vanishing. These discs are mostly water. When you're young, they're plump, springy, and fully hydrated, like a fresh grape. As the decades pass, they slowly lose their ability to hold water. They flatten, they dry. They compress under your own body weight, day after day, year after year. Picture that fresh grape slowly turning into a raisin. That's your spine, and it's why you're getting shorter. But here's the part that should grab you. This isn't only about discs. Your shrinking is the combined result of at least 4 separate processes happening at once, and most doctors only mention one of them, if any. The discs are draining, the spine is curving, the muscles holding you upright are wasting, and in some people, the bones genuinely are compressing. The real question isn't whether you'll shrink, it's why your body lets it happen, and which parts of it you can actually stop. The answer starts with what happens to those discs every single day, while you're simply standing up. Let me explain what's happening to your spinal discs right now, because the mechanism is stranger than you think, and it's reversible in ways the others aren't. Each disc has 2 parts. On the outside, a tough, fibrous ring, like the layered tread of a tire. On the inside, a soft gel core that's about 80% water when you're young. That water is what gives the disc its bounce. When you jump, twist, or lift, the disc squashes slightly and springs back, protecting the bones above and below from grinding together. Here's the first thing nobody tells you. Your discs lose and regain water every single day. When you stand and walk, gravity slowly squeezes water out of them. By bedtime, they're flatter, and you're measurably shorter than when you woke up. Overnight, lying down, the pressure comes off and the discs soak water back in like a sponge. By morning, you're taller again. The difference is real and measurable. Most adults are roughly half an inch to nearly an inch taller in the morning than at night. NASA documented this dramatically. Astronauts in zero gravity, with no downward pressure on their spines, can temporarily grow up to 2 inches taller in space. Read that again. Your height changes every day. Your discs are working sponges. Now here's the problem with aging. The gel core of your disc has no direct blood supply. None. It's one of the only tissues in your body that doesn't get fed by blood vessels. Instead, it absorbs nutrients and water through tiny exchanges with the bone next to it, a slow seepage, like water moving through a coffee filter. As you age, the surfaces that allow this exchange harden and clog. The disc can no longer pull in water and nutrients the way it used to, so it dries out, flattens, and stays flat. The sponge stops re-soaking. This is why your daily height swing matters. Researchers studying spinal aging have found that the discs are usually the first structures to degenerate, often starting as early as your 30s, long before any bone loss appears. A major review of spinal aging published in spine research literature confirmed that disc degeneration is the leading contributor to height loss in the decades after 40, ahead of osteoporosis for most people. So what does this mean for you? It means a meaningful slice of your shrinking is tied to how well your discs stay hydrated and how much you keep them moving. Movement matters enormously here, and here's the Feynman's simple reason why. Since discs have no blood supply and feed through that slow seepage, they depend on motion to drive the exchange. When you bend, walk, and shift, you pump fluid in and out of the disc, like gently squeezing and releasing a sponge underwater. When you sit still for hours, the pumping stops and the disc starves. This is why a sedentary life accelerates disc aging and why the people who keep moving keep more of their height. There's something almost hopeful buried in this. Unlike bone, which is hard to rebuild after a certain age, disc hydration responds to how you live, your movement, your posture, your water intake, the pressure you take off your spine. But disc drying is only the first of the 4 forces shrinking you. The second one isn't about cushions at all. It's about the engine that holds you upright. And what happens when it quietly powers down is the reason so many people don't just get shorter. They start to fold forward. The second reason you shrink has nothing to do with your spine drying out. It's about the muscles wrapped around it giving up. Running along both sides of your spine are deep muscles called the erector spinae, your built-in scaffolding. Their entire job is to hold you upright against gravity every waking second without you ever thinking about it. They're working right now as you sit, and like every muscle in your body, they shrink when you stop demanding enough from them. Here's the mechanism that connects to everything else. Starting around 30, you lose muscle mass, about 3 to 8% per decade, accelerating after 60. Scientists call this sarcopenia. When the deep spinal muscles weaken, they can no longer hold your vertebrae in their proper stacked alignment. Your upper back begins to round forward. Doctors call this excessive forward curve kyphosis, the rounded, stooped posture you've seen in older adults. And here's the cruel geometry of it. When your spine curves forward instead of standing straight, you lose height, even if every single bone and disc stayed exactly the same size. A bent ruler measures shorter than a straight one. Think about that. You can lose inches purely from posture, from muscles that stop being strong enough to hold you tall. Now the empathy moment. If you've noticed yourself catching your reflection and seeing a stoop you don't remember having, if your chin drifts forward, if standing fully straight now takes conscious effort, that's not just getting old. That's your spinal muscles telling you they've lost strength they were never asked to keep. And here's the part that matters. Those muscles respond to training at any age. Studies on resistance exercise in adults in their 70s and 80s show real, measurable strength gains in the back and core. The scaffolding can be rebuilt. The stoop is not always permanent. If this is making sense, and you want the third force, the one that's the most surprising and the most overlooked, the hidden reason some people shrink fast while others barely shrink at all, subscribe now. It's coming in just a couple of minutes, and it changed how I think about aging entirely. There's a vicious cycle hiding here too. As your posture rounds forward, the load on your discs changes. Instead of pressing evenly, your body weight starts crushing the front edge of each disc and vertebra. That uneven pressure speeds up disc flattening, and in the bones, it can eventually lead to small fractures. So weak muscles worsen disc loss, and disc loss worsens posture, and the two feed each other downward. The research is still evolving on exactly how much each factor contributes in any one person, but the loop itself is well established. This is why simply having strong bones isn't enough to stay tall. You can have decent bone density and still shrink significantly if your discs dry and your postural muscles fade. 3 different systems, all sliding at once. And here's a number that should land. A study following older adults found that significant height loss over time, more than 1.5 inches, was associated with higher risks of cardiovascular problems and earlier mortality, especially in men. Shrinking, in other words, isn't just cosmetic. It's a visible marker of what's happening to your muscle, your skeleton, and your overall resilience. Your height is a report card on your structural health. But none of this, not the discs, not the muscles, explains the most dramatic, sudden shrinking that some people experience seemingly overnight. That third force is different. It's the one that can steal 2 inches in a year. And what causes it is something happening silently inside your bones, long before you ever feel it. What almost nobody talks about is the third force, and it's the one that turns slow shrinking into sudden collapse. Compression fractures. And the frightening part is that most of them happen without you even knowing. Here's the setup. Inside your vertebrae, bone is constantly being broken down and rebuilt, your whole life. When you're young, the building keeps pace with the breaking. After 50, and especially in women after menopause, the breaking pulls ahead. The drop in estrogen accelerates bone loss dramatically, which is why women lose bone faster than men in the decade after menopause. The bone becomes porous and brittle. This is osteoporosis, and it's often completely silent until something gives way. And here's what gives way: the vertebrae themselves. They can slowly crumple under ordinary daily load, not from a fall, not from an accident, but from the simple weight of your own body pressing down on weakened bone. These are called vertebral compression fractures. The vertebra collapses, often into a wedge shape, and you lose height in that spot permanently. Read this carefully. 2 out of 3 of these spinal fractures cause no sharp pain at all. People assume they'd feel a broken bone in their back. Most don't. They just quietly get shorter. That's the disturbing truth. Research from osteoporosis specialists has found that the majority of vertebral compression fractures are never diagnosed because there's no dramatic moment, just a gradual stoop and a loss of height that gets dismissed as normal aging. A single compression fracture can cost you close to half an inch. Several stacked together can fold a spine forward into a pronounced hump. This is the real engine behind the most severe shrinking and stooping you see in older adults. So now you understand why measuring your height regularly matters more than almost anyone realizes. Doctors who specialize in bone health treat sudden height loss as a red flag, a possible sign of a silent fracture that needs investigation. If you lose more than 1.5 inches from your peak adult height, many bone specialists recommend a bone density scan. That number is a clue your body is leaving for you. Here's the fourth and final force, and it ties the others together. Your whole body's water content drops with age. When you're young, you're about 60% water. By later life, that can fall toward 50% or below. Less total water means less hydration available for those thirsty discs, less plumpness in your tissues overall. Combine chronic mild dehydration with discs that have lost their ability to soak, and you've got a body that's quite literally drying down. Now step back and look at all 4 together. Discs draining, muscles wasting, bones compressing, tissues dehydrating. 4 separate processes, each capable of stealing height on its own, and in most people, all 4 are running quietly at the same time, reinforcing one another. That's the real reason your body shrinks after 50. Not one cause, a convergence. Some scientists caution that we still can't say precisely how much each factor contributes for any given individual. It varies enormously based on genetics, sex, activity, and nutrition. Depending on who you ask, you'll hear discs blamed more or bones blamed more. The debate is genuine, but the 4 forces themselves are not in dispute. So the question becomes, if shrinking is driven by 4 things, and at least 3 of them respond to how you live, how do you actually slow it down and hold on to your height? Here's what the science points to. You can't stop all of it, but you can meaningfully slow most of it, and the steps reinforce each other. Each one targets a specific force. First, strength train your back and legs at least twice a week. This is the single most powerful step because it hits 2 forces at once. It rebuilds the postural muscles that hold you upright, and it directly stimulates bone to stay dense. Bone responds to load. When you put resistance through your skeleton, it gets the signal to maintain itself. Focus on movements that load the spine safely, supported rows, gentle squats, and exercises that strengthen the muscles between your shoulder blades. If you're new to this or have any bone concerns, start with a physical therapist, because with fragile bones, certain forward-bending movements can be risky. Second, do this one exercise daily for posture. Stand with your back against a wall, heels a few inches out, and gently press your head, shoulders, and lower back toward the wall. Hold for 30 seconds. Breathe. This trains your spine to find its tall, neutral position and wakes up the deep muscles that have gone quiet from sitting. Do it every morning. It takes less time than brushing your teeth. Third, break up sitting every 30 to 45 minutes. Remember, your discs feed and hydrate through motion. Long stillness starves them. Stand, walk a few steps, roll your shoulders. You're pumping fluid back into the sponge. This single habit fights disc flattening better than almost anything else. Fourth, protect your bone-building nutrients. Your bones need adequate calcium and vitamin D to maintain density, and most older adults fall short on D especially. Get D checked with a simple blood test, and get calcium through food first. Dairy, leafy greens, sardines with bones. Protein matters too, because both muscle and the bone framework are built from it. Discuss specific amounts with your doctor rather than guessing. Fifth, stay genuinely hydrated. Since your discs and tissues are drying with age, give them the water they need. Many older adults have a blunted thirst signal and drink too little without realizing it. Keep water visible and drink throughout the day, not all at once. Sixth, measure your height once a year and write it down. This isn't vanity, It's the simplest early warning system you have for silent spinal fractures and accelerating bone loss. A drop of more than an inch and a half from your peak is worth a conversation with your doctor. If even one of these was new to you, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm to show this to more people over 50 who need it, and most of them have never heard that their shrinking is partly something they can fight. Dr. Wayne Westcott, who has researched strength training in older adults for decades, has shown repeatedly that people in their 70s and 80s can rebuild meaningful muscle and improve bone markers with consistent resistance training. The body responds to demand at nearly any age. You are not too late. You now understand something most people never learn, that shrinking isn't one inevitable process, but four manageable ones, and that the height you keep is partly a choice you make every day. Step back and look at what your height really represents. It's not vanity. It's a visible summary of your spine, your muscles, your bones, and your hydration. Four systems reporting their condition through a single number you can measure in your own bathroom. When you lose height fast, your body is telling you something. The question is whether anyone's listening. That's the quiet truth of aging. So much of what we call just getting old is actually disuse, dehydration, and silence. Bodies that stopped being asked to stay strong, stopped being moved, stopped being measured. The discs flatten when you stop moving. The muscles fade when you stop loading them. The bones thin when nobody checks. None of it is fully avoidable, but almost none of it is as fixed as people assume. And here's the part I find genuinely moving. The same simple things hold up all four systems at once. Movement feeds the discs and loads the bones. Strength holds the posture and signals the skeleton. Water plumps the tissue. The body was built to stay upright, and it keeps trying. It just needs you to keep asking. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Have you measured your height recently, and were you surprised by what you found? I'd bet a lot of you haven't checked in years and have no idea where you actually stand right now. Here's the truth to carry with you. You don't simply lose your height. You stop holding it up. Share this with someone over 50 who's noticed themselves getting shorter and assumed nothing could be done. They deserve to know how much of it they can still fight. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it. What I've been researching for next week builds directly on this, and it's something I've spent months piecing together. Your body is still trying to stand tall. It's just waiting for you to give it a reason.